Hey guys, welcome to Editing with Reina. This is Reina from Simply Actions, and I'd like to show you how I achieved this composite edit, as well as the final edit that you see here. Alright, so first I start in Adobe Camera Raw, and my first step is to choose the preset that fits this setting. My favorite for outdoor photos is Smooth. I do suggest that if you are adjusting any of the presets, to just try and stick to the basic panel unless you've got experience in Adobe Camera Raw and you kind of know what you're doing, which I didn't for a long time, but yeah, just to be sure so it doesn't get too confusing. Staying in the basic panel is kind of the easiest place as well, so you could really probably have the preset fit your editing or your shooting style pretty easily just by staying in the basic panel. So now I've clicked Command or Control and then clicked on the bottom image, which is the one that which is the final image. And then I'm clicking Synchronize and OK so that I can have both of these images edited the exact same way in ACR, so it makes things a little bit easier. Then I open it up in Photoshop. So this is the final image I'm working with, but I have to remove Mum out of the photo. She's there to keep the baby safe because he wasn't a sturdy sitting just yet. He was just turned 6 months, so I wanted to keep her there. And so now I have to remove her. So in doing that, I had to take a picture of the alley without her there so that I could have something to put on top of her. So what I did was I went into the original image. I used the marquee tool, selected, pressed Control or Command C to copy, went into the new image, pressed Command or Control V for pasting, and then I just chose the select tool and then I started moving it around. And so I've lowered the opacity so that I can see where the bottom layer is, so that I can try to match the top layer to it. This is a bit tricky. I am using the bricks for reference. The reason why I want to make it match is because once I paint this off, if it doesn't match pretty close to exactly the leaves in that bush that's right where she is, right at the edge there, look very weird and kind of doubled. And so you'll see that I fiddled with this quite a bit. I do want to say to make sure that you press on that button I just pressed, which is that little infinity symbol, whenever you do any kind of adjustment to the size of whatever your selection is, because that'll keep the ratio exact, so then you won't have anything squished or stretched too much. So now I've selected a mask, and I have now got a black brush at 100% opacity. I am just erasing the hard lines of the pasted on layer. And then you'll see that I will then lower the opacity of the layer, and then I'll also lower my brush opacity to 30%, just so that I can slowly blend the top layer with the bottom layer. I prefer to do it this way because sometimes you can really see the difference if you're using your brush at 100%. So if you're using 30, it's a slower work, but it's also a softer edge. So I've sped up my work that I did here because it does get pretty tedious. I did a lot of turning on and off of my layer and making sure that everything matched. I do want to let you know that whenever you have the move tool selected, you can move things, but as you can see, I moved the layer without the mouse there. That's using the arrow keys on your keyboard. It lets you nudge the layer back and forth a little bit for you, so then it's very small steps. So it's really good for if you are finding that whenever you move, it jumps a little bit too much to one side or to the other. So close to done here. It's a good thing I sped this up because it would be pretty boring. So now we can flatten the layer and move on. So my next step is I'm going to want to crop this. For me, I wanted to have this because, I mean, there's two leading lines. He's right smack dab in the middle, so I really would love to see a bit more symmetry in this image. So I'm going to crop it. I'm also going to remove a lot of the foreground because I don't want too much ground in the image. So I'm just trying to find where he will be and match up so that he's exactly in the middle. And I'm noticing that the building seems to be leaning a little bit too much, so I'm going to straighten up the horizon just a little bit. I think looking at the baby, I'm kind of feeling like that he's straight up and down, but I just want to make sure the building isn't completely crooked. So it's a very slight fix, but I just want to make sure that with so many straight lines in an image, I don't want to have anything slanted. All right, so I'm going to play an action called Magical from the new Simply Dream set, which will be released March 21st. I'm going to go ahead and play that, and then I'm just going to lower the opacity to where I am comfortable with it. I'm thinking probably more close to 43-45% will probably work. And then once I get that, I'm going to go ahead and grab myself a black brush because I have a white mask. And I'm going to keep that brush at a 30% opacity, or just a low opacity, so I can brush off just a little bit of the action off of his face and his body. So I'm going to go ahead and get Simply Artiste. As you can see, I have Artiste ordered out in the order that I suggest that you play with it in. You don't need to use the entire set for every image. For instance, I think for this image I'm just going to stick with sunspots and maybe a little bit of a matte effect because I've done a lot of the editing already with my action that I've played. So I'm going to play the sunspots. Now the sunspots play with many different locations that you just need to paint on where you want it to. So whether you want it on the left corner, right corner. I also have I have small sunspots and large sunspots. So you have lots of options to play with. So now I'm thinking I'm going to want the large middle sunspot. So I'll click on that, and then you just need to make sure that you've got the mask clicked. And as you can see, it's black, so that means that the effect of the action is not really being played on the image just yet. Whenever you have a black mask, it means it's not on the image. Whenever you have a white mask, the effect of that layer is on the image. So in that case, I'll need a white brush in order to play that onto the image. So I'm going to take my brush and make it just a bit bigger using the bracket keys on your keyboard. Not the ones over the 9 and the 0, but the square and fancy brackets that you see right kind of to the right of the P. So I take this white brush and I play it over the entire top. And you'll see that because this is only being painted on at a low opacity, that once I let go, everything will kind of just gather up into the middle. So you just gotta slowly kind of paint it on. I'm going to lower the opacity so it's not so bright on the top of the image there. Just get it to an opacity I'm happy with, just go by what you feel works best. So now I'm going to go ahead and flatten the layer. I'm a flattener. I know there are people out there who are not flatteners, but I just flatten. So next I'm going to work on the vignettes. Now the reason why I'm bringing out the vignettes is because there is a matte vignette that I actually like to use as an entire background. There is mattes in the matte haze blur action, but I really kind of prefer this vignette matte that I've created to play on the edges of photos and kind of bleeding it into the backgrounds a bit too. So now the thing I want to tell you about is if you ever want to make your subject pop, the best way to do that is to darken the background and then leave the subject bright. Adds a little bit of a spotlight to them. So my computer's playing a little bit slow, so just bear with it. But you'll see that the matte effect is quite beautiful. So here it is, turning it off. So you can see it kind of darkened the ground a bit, made it less noticeable. Really kind of draws your eyes to the middle where the baby is, which is what you want. Okay, so now I'm going to flatten it. I flatten by pressing Command-Shift-E. It's really just merging the layers. Now I'm going to go into my adjustment layers and selecting curves. And I'm going to take that middle point. I'm going to drag it down a little bit. I'm going to show you just a little bit of an idea of how, another way to add a bit of a spotlight effect to your image. I'm going to make my brush super huge. Now, once I've got it really big, I'm going to play it just one click at 100% opacity over where the baby is. So there's the spotlight right there in the middle. Now what you do is you go and click on the mask, and it's going to take you to mask properties. Then you're going to take that feather all the way over to 1000% or whatever that is, right to the right hand side. And what's going to happen is it's going to really feather that spotlight that you put on there. And I'm just going to make the brush a bit smaller and just brush a little bit extra off the face. At a low opacity, of course. So now I'm going to flatten that layer. And I'm going to go to that little yin-yang symbol there. I don't know what that's called, but that's where a lot of the adjustment layers are. I'm going to add solid color. I'm going to choose a super darkish, kind of tealish blue to play over the image. It's a nice overall uniform kind of color. I just like the effect. So once I've played it onto the image, I'm going to have to lower the opacity. And I'm going to lower it right down 7 or 8% here. Let's see how that works. Yeah, I like that a lot better. And then of course you're going to go ahead and play it on and off your layer just to see how it looks with that effect played. So then I'm going to play that, just click on the mask, and of course we're going to take a black brush and we're going to paint it off. Off the baby, because we don't want the baby to be blue. I'm going to choose a low opacity and paint a bit of the blue off of that sunspot because I don't want to have a blue sunspot. Just bring that yellow back in because I did want the effect on the darker parts of the image, but not necessarily on my sunspot. I'm just going to flatten that image again. And that's my before. This is after it was an ECR. And now here it is with the final. And that's how I edited this image. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.